20th of January, people quit their New Year's resolutions. People go in, they say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and they fail. I've done it time and time again. I'm going to work out 5 days a week. I'm going to lose 20 pounds. I'm going to make $1 million. I'm going to whatever. They failed their goals. They're off track. What is the honest to goodness solution? Make goals work for them in 2026 without falling off track. Tanner, it's 2026 and goals suck. People go in, they say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and they fail. I've done it time and time again. I'm going to work out 5 days a week. I'm going to lose 20 pounds. I'm going to make $1 million. I'm going to whatever, enter the thing. And then I forgot the statistics, but something like by the 20th of January, people quit their New Year's resolutions. They failed their goals. They're off track. They think they're a loser. All this stuff. What is the honest to goodness solution, if you know, for goals, and how can someone listen to this make goals work for them in 2026 without falling off track?
Yeah, no, I think people used to always do New Year's resolutions, right? It's always been a thing. And then they tried to create the SMART goals to replace the New Year's resolutions. And I haven't found that working. And now there's people doing, other variations of SMART goals. And I think that, I mean, what's worked for me is the be do have. And I've heard that spoken in different sermons. I've heard it spoken from motivational speakers. And the be do have is, if you start with the end in mind, what you really want by those fitness goals is to be in shape. And if you define what in shape is for you, then what is the do steps for becoming in shape? Well, I need to go to the gym regularly. Well, what's regularly? Maybe 3 days a week, 5 days a week, 1 day a week is more than I'm going right now. And then be first. So I'm going to be the type of person that goes to the gym 3 days a week because I take my health seriously. And then I'm going to do the steps by going 3 days a week. And then I'm going to have the fitness that I want. And it starts with that identity, is becoming that type of person. It's like we've talked about before, is I really felt like an investor when I started calling myself an investor. I didn't have any properties yet, but I said, I'm an investor, so I do investor things like underwriting properties and walking properties and putting offers on properties. I didn't wait until I had the properties to then start doing the action steps. So I think creating the habits of the type of person that you want to become is the first step. And we've talked a lot about atomic habits and the compound effect. It's not from these drastic measures of I went from all of 2025 going to the gym 4 times to now I'm going every single day. And then 2 weeks into January, realize it's a lot harder to just change my behavior to do, a daily gym routine. But I can become the type of person who takes my health more seriously, does the action steps of going to the gym more frequently than I do right now, and then I have the life that I want. So be do have.
Yeah, so I think, well, first of all, I'll back out. How does that differ from, we were just on a call a week and a half or so ago with Brandon Turner, and maybe it was on Friday, I don't remember.
I think it was last week. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it was right before Christmas. It was Friday before Christmas.
Mhm.
So Christmas is throwing me off. But we're on a call with Brandon Turner, or Zoom call, going over goals. How does what you say differ from what Brandon Turner, because he takes the SMART goals,
It's
turns
smarter.
and added the ER to it
Hmm.
to make it smarter. But he talks about identity and identifying as that. It almost seems like you took it and just condensed it down some. What is the difference between the two? If someone's watching this and then they watch Brandon speak about it.
Yeah, I think that the only real difference is he has a different framework to it. He's trying to be specific and measurable and achievable and all that stuff. And what I'm saying, probably one of the things I got from him from listening to Bigger Pockets for all those years is he talked about, um, he realized how unhealthy it was to eat sweets all the time. So he just said, I don't eat sweets anymore. The same thing works with people who are trying to quit drinking and the same people trying to quit smoking cigarettes. If you say, I don't like smoking, then eventually you're programming your mind into the I'm the type of person that doesn't like smoking. And he said this about eating. He said he would have a bowl of ice cream after every dinner until he started saying, I don't eat ice cream after dinner anymore. And then so he became the type of person, he did the step of not having ice cream anymore, and now he has the better health that he wanted. It's be do have. And I think that what I'm doing is simplifying the 6-step framework of smarter goals or the 5-step of smart goals down into just do the action steps of the thing that you want.
Smarter would be 7.
You're right.
Just want to make you smarter.
Thank you,
No.
Mr. MBA.
That's funny because you said 6, and then when you went to smart, you said
Five.
5. So
Yeah,
I had to. If you hadn't said 5, I probably wouldn't have corrected you. But we'll just let that one go in the
that's
comments.
funny.
But yeah, I agree that everything should start with identifying. And I mean, you threw out a couple books, Atomic Habits, uh,
Compound
Compound
effect.
Effect, but also start with why.
Mm.
Would be another one I'd add there. Like, start with your why. Why do you want to lose 20 pounds? Why do you want to go to the gym 3 days a week? Is it for yourself? Is it to look good on the beach? Is it for your family? What is it? To play
Well,
better with your kids?
and you've brought this up many times before, is that you don't necessarily like the concrete measurables of I want to lose 20 pounds, because if you reach 19 pounds, did you fail? Like if you get to 21, did you over succeed? Like it's hard. I believe more in creating the lifestyle of I want to be healthier. And if I'm focusing on this, I want to lose weight, I can go starve myself for the next 3 weeks and I'll lose weight. Doesn't make me
So what
healthier.
people would argue though, and that's I think where the issue comes into play with goals is what is healthier? How do you measure that? How do you but in the same token, to your point, like what is the success? If
Hmm.
if you set it at 20 pounds, you lose 19, did you fail?
Hmm.
If you say I want to go to the gym 250 times in 2026 and you hit 220 when you've done it 20 times last year. So you increased by 200, but you didn't hit your goal. Did you fail? And that's I think where people start becoming disgruntled. I would say really, in my opinion, what matters is identity, identifying as someone that works out, someone that doesn't eat sweets or doesn't eat ice cream after 7 o'clock or whatever it is that you want to identify as. And try your damnedest to stick to that. And if you fail once, just don't fail 2 days in a row.
Mm.
So, and I would also say don't fail 2 meals in a row.
Mm.
And I'll use food for that because people are like, well, I already screwed up for today. And so they go out and,
Binge.
binge and, make it, you're compounding it, don't have that mentality. So that would be the two things I would say. Cause, who is the comedian? God, I can't think of him, but he said like, I'm just going to write a joke every day. And then he called it Don't Break the X.
Mm.
And so on the calendar, he would put an X. January 1st, boom, I did it.
And they had like 4 years or
Yeah, he
10
had
years, something
like,
like
and
that.
so
Yeah.
his only goal,
I think Seinfeld.
Seinfeld, that's
Yeah.
what it was. Uh, that was his only goal was to write a joke every day. And then he started and he wrote it on the calendar, X, X, X. And he just kept going, kept going. And then his only goal at that point in time was don't break the X. Like, I just think sometimes we overcomplicate things. We let ourselves get down on things. And at the end of the day, like, you're still better off, even if you fail once. You know, 75 hard is a great example. Like, you start over again. Like, I understand, like, the goal is to make it 75 days in a row, but if I didn't work out or I didn't drink my gallon of water or whatever it is, you can just start off at day one. Like, it
Mm.
just resets. And so you just try again and try again.
But and I get your point that that can be discouraging. Is that when you're trying to go 75 days straight, you break a day, you got to go back to day one. Eventually, people just give up. But I think that the habit stacking they talked about is tying your habits to something else. Like if we said if you want to start every day with scripture, then just tie it to brushing your teeth. Is right after I brush my teeth, I go read some scripture. If it's, I want to exercise more, what I've found that works is if I say I'm going to do one more push-up than the day before, and every single day. And I've heard jokes on TikTok where they say like, I gave myself this challenge, for every day that I miss of running, I'm going to run an extra 15 minutes the next day. It's like so far I've got 3 months and 14 days of running to do. Like I get it, but if you just give yourself achievable, which goes back to the smart thing, is I'm going to do a little more exercise than the day prior. If I did 3 push-ups today, then tomorrow I didn't do any, the day after I do 4. You're still doing more activity than you did the year that went by you did nothing. Instead of holding yourself to this higher standard of I'm going to go to the gym for 2 hours every single day. I mean, it's not realistic.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing is what is realistic, and I hate to say it, but don't get down on yourself. Like I think we live in an environment in a world that people feel like failure and they don't want to admit failure. And so we only want to put on the rose color Instagram glasses and, post on social media that we're doing well. But say you had a goal of working out 5 days a week and you only hit 4 days. Is it is it criminal to put that on social media?
Mhm.
Like, hey, this was my goal. I didn't quite hit it. Like I would say that's more honest. That's more forthright. And if more people did things like that versus uh for example, I think it was today, Chris Pratt, the actor.
Mhm.
Jocko Willink has his, I think he calls it Dev Reset or something. It's basically the whole month of January, he puts out workouts for people to do. And so there's certain criterias. And Chris Pratt's in shape. Like he did, I forgot what it was. It was 100 burpees in 20 minutes or something like that. Like most people can't do that.
Mhm.
And he's like, all you have to do is just get up and try. No, like I would be throwing up all over my house if I tried to do
Yeah.
100 burpees in 20 minutes. It just some people that doesn't work for. So maybe it's 20 burpees in 20 minutes. One burpee a minute.
Mhm.
But it's starting where you are. Like I always when we go to church, they're like they want to meet you where you're at. Like maybe you haven't been to church in 20 years. Showing up once is a win for you
Mhm.
versus someone that goes to church every day or every week. Maybe starting a small Bible study is the next step for them. So it's your goals need to be representative of where you are. Like you said, you can't step in the gym on January 1st and work out for 2 hours. It just doesn't work. You're gonna fail. You're setting yourself up for failure.
Well, but what I've learned is that I continuously fail because I try to do that. So I try, I mean, maybe when I was in high school, I could go for 2 hours and I'd be fine. I go back the next day, 2 hours, and I'm just fine. I mean, now I try and go to the gym for 2 hours. I'm sore the next 3 days. And then I'm like, ah, gosh, I can't work out like that. But doing just gradually more activity. And for me, last year was stretching. I started out the year really good, just stretching every single day. My back felt better. My knees didn't hurt as much. Like I was more flexible. And then towards the end of the year, you see it start to dip, and I'm like, well, why am I sore all the time now? Well, because I stopped doing the things that worked. And if I just kept on doing it a little bit more every day, then I would have a lot more results than trying to do it all at once. And I think that I don't know if you call it virtue signaling or walling in self pity, but it's easier to not try and succeed at not trying than it is to try and fail.
I I think that's the number one thing. Uh, People like yeah. I can't even. I want to add to that, but like people are scared to try and fail, and we've come up with a culture that it's okay to not try.
To
And
confidently not try.
yeah, and it's just it doesn't make any sense to me.
Mhm.
So all this is great for personal stuff, be it reading the Bible, be it working out, eating better, um, dates with your wife, all that stuff. How do you look at goals when it comes to business?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have my revenue targets and my net income goals, my net worth goals, and all that stuff. But it's not the money; it's the lifestyle it provides. Is we're pursuing this life of freedom, and I know what benchmarks I need to hit to reach that. And I think being okay and giving yourself the grace to fail there is important. I mean, obviously, as long as we're somewhat net positive, then that's still a good year. But if I say that my net income goal this year is 500,000 and I fall short of that and I make 350, it's still a pretty good year. And so I mean, we're going through that worksheet, my wife and I started doing it together, actually last night, and just setting the goals. What I really like about it is it talks about spirituality, your relationship with your wife, your relationship with your kids, business, the mindset, growth, all that stuff as their own. Where do you want to be in 5 years, and how, and just seeing how it all ties together, and then also putting it on paper and seeing, comparing my wife's and mine, they're very, very close. Like, we have the same goals, we just have different ways of getting there. And so I think, to answer your question, with business, it's more of how does this serve the ultimate end goal, and the ultimate end goal is the lifestyle that I want to live. And basically, if I'm trying to buy a 100-acre ranch in the middle of the boonies, but everything I'm doing is, it's going to keep me in the business the next 20 years, then what I'm doing, the action steps, the be do have, is not going to give me the have that I want. So it's like, granted, I still believe that some kind of movement is better than nothing, because you could move in the wrong direction. It's easier to course correct. But to a certain point, if I'm moving down this path and what I want is over here, I'm wasting time.
So what you're saying is more on new endeavors, is from what I gathered from what you just said. Well, I guess my specific question is for things that you're actively working in. So real estate, property management, uh, uh, trucking company, stuff like that. How do you set goals for those things specific to something that you're already doing versus new endeavors?
Yeah, and that's one thing we talked about in the previous week. Is I had a meeting with our business coach, and he talked about, we 2025 was a year of or for us. Is, does this bring money to our house, or does it give us our time back? And we made decisions in business based on one of those two things. And he said 2026 is your year for, and is every decision you're making, does it bring more money into your house and give you your time back? And so if I'm using that as a litmus test for every decision I'm making, maybe in the trucking company, I can go out and drive 3 weeks out of the month, 4 weeks, a month. I can be on the road constantly. It'll bring more money into my house, but that's an or. It brings more money into my house, but it doesn't give me more time with my kids. So what's the decision where I can bring more money into my house and I can get more time back with my kids? Well, for me, it's hiring on new drivers, and hiring on new drivers and scaling up the business more from the conductor perspective, or the, what do you call it, the orchestrator of it, instead of being a worker in the business. I mean, coming from middle class, my dad, he worked until he was 62, and the whole nine. That's all I ever known, is just trade your time for dollars. And even owning a business, it's very easy to fall into that trap. You could very easily become a one-man shop, go make a bunch of money, but you're choosing or instead of and. So if that answers your question, it's the and, is finding things that give me more money and more time.
So I guess what I'm gathering from what you're saying is your goal in business, across whatever business you're doing, your goal is to buy back more time. So, like for me, for example, my goal is for my business is just revenue goal. Yours is a time goal. How does what you're doing buy more time back in your family? Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think so. And for me, it's all around opportunity cost. I'm constantly looking at opportunity cost, because there's so much opportunity out there. And if I go drive for, we can work 60, 70 hours a week, and I can make another 2 to 3 grand a week driving. You divide that up by the amount of time I'm gone, because if it's working time, sure, I might be making 35, $40 an hour of active time, but I'm gone from my kids 24 hours a day. So you divide that up, that's maybe $16 an hour. So can I make more than $16 an hour by hiring on drivers and working from home where I can be around my kids? Absolutely. Now, granted, I'm not going to make 2 to 3 grand a week. It might be more like 800 to $1,000 a week. But of my active time, that frees me up to do the other ventures. Like, I can start going after more real estate deals. I can buy more trucks. I can hire on more staff, and my hourly rate is worth more. So to me, that's the and, is the time that I'm actively working is worth more than it was when I'm gone 24 hours a day.
Yeah. And I think it's just what's nice about this, and if someone's listening to it, we're in different seasons, if you will, like as far as business goes. Uh, I mean, everybody's in different seasons as far as everything goes, but I, when I bought my business, I bought a business that realistically, if I never went to the business, I'd have been okay because I wasn't the operator. I wasn't the master plumber. I had an office staff. I could have basically kept it the same as it was without growing it, um, and still met revenue or met debt service and all that stuff. So that's kind of how I initially set it up, or I forced myself to buy something in that situation. You are a little different because you bought it as a owner operator,
Mhm.
and so there's a little bit different there. My only involvement in the business is, you always hear the term working on versus working in. So
Mhm.
I'm only working on the business.
Mhm.
I spend 10, 15 hours a week, whatever it is, over there working on the business. Some other stuff that, I do. I mean, this podcast, I think helps me from a growth standpoint. There's other things I do within my week that uh, you could associate with, business because if we were talking before this about podcast with Paul. And so obviously that helps my business, even though it's not necessarily working on or in or anything with the business. So it's just a matter of, for listening to this, is deciding or figuring out exactly what season you're in and making the best decision. This goes back to one of the things, like on my phone. I think I have my phone on me, but uh, I have on it, just on my main screen, like just basically, I forgot what podcast we did, but someone was talking. Oh, he's your neighbor. Can't think of his
Oh
name.
yeah, setting our
Yeah,
life purpose, our life
yeah,
goal.
life goal thing. So that's like, so everything I have, I don't read this every day, but it's right there. Every time I punch in my phone,
Mhm.
it tells me
Well,
exactly
and
what it
we talked a
is.
lot about having a North Star.
That's
No.
basically it. Yeah.
Well, and if you're paying yourself $1,000 a week from your business, if you put double the amount of hours in your business, you don't make double the amount of money. It just cuts your hourly rate in half because you're still only paying yourself $1,000 a week. And so that's where the opportunity cost comes in. Is if you can find a way to get everything you need done in 10 to 15 hours, you're worth $100 an hour from that business. That means you can free yourself up for other ventures. Maybe it's another acquisition or another real estate deal where you can keep that hourly rate higher. And so where I'm at in my business is the same concept, but what's hard for people is to take that leap into working on the business. And it's especially hard for me to, I'm going to be missing out on dollars deposited into the bank, but it's going to free up my time so much that my hourly rate goes up significantly.
Yeah. And I would say that's kind of the difference, why there's different areas of business buying. I mean, we're going off on a tangent with this, but you can be the owner operator. You can be, uh, kind of where I'm at, and I would call it the middle ground. And then you can buy large business that you're already 100% out of, and you just do a couple of strategic things or read some KPIs. That's basically what private equity and
Mhm.
venture capital do. So I'm in between. Like, I'm not business is big enough for venture capital and private equity yet, but I'm not an operator in there, and so that's kind of
Yeah.
the different areas of that. What How do you manage, or how do you quantify, I guess, your time? You said you want to buy back more time with your family this year. Or is that something you track? Do you put KPIs to everything? Like for me, I said I have a revenue goal. Um, I would say I have two goals when it's not personal. One is revenue goal for the business. Another one is my real estate. I want to buy enough real estate that I don't have to pay any taxes for my business.
Hmm.
So those are my two goals. Like whether that's how much real estate that has to be determined, but that's my goal, and that's how give my CPA. Okay,
Hmm.
uh, you need to buy a single family home, or you need to buy $1 million property or wherever that falls. I don't know, but that's basically my two business goals. Um, and then obviously personal stuff. But where does I forget exactly where I was going with that, but that's what I was asking. How do you quantify time? Is that a KPI that you track for your time, or where do you go with that?
So for my time in particular, not necessarily. Right now, it's uh, in that kind of middle stage of just trying to. I have a goal for how much revenue I need to create in order to keep my employees fed, and my goal for them is to make $2,000 a week. That's a difficult feat, but I can control that directly by booking better loads and getting better contracts and everything that I'm doing in the back end. I can provide them with more opportunity to where they can make more money. And when they make more money, they become lifers, and then I will, as a third or fourth, effect of that, I will start making more money. So my focus is more around building the systems, and I do have revenue goals. Like for if I'm bringing in right now 15,000 per truck, and I have two trucks, then I'm bringing in about $30,000 gross per month, total. But I know that by removing myself from the active time, I can be more efficient with that time, and I can probably get that to 20,000 per truck, and they can net more money, which then makes the business grow. And so that's kind of more what I'm tracking on a revenue goal, but not necessarily what I'm bringing home. I know that what I bring home is an after effect of those efforts. And I guess that I think it's comes down to tracking leading and lagging measures. Is if you're only tracking what's my take home, that's a lagging measure. It's hard to find the steps that go into that. But I know that the leading measure is how much revenue am I generating per truck, or what is my revenue per mile. Like I want to be between $2 and $3 per mile. If I'm booking loads that are $1.50 per mile, I'm taking 25% off of my top line. That's going to trickle down, and there's not going to be as much left over.
And that's a great point that I don't think people realize. For every penny that you, so if you know what your break even point is, every penny that you add to that top line past that goes straight down to the bottom line. And so a lot of times I think that gets missed, whether for me in the plumbing business. So we charge for just a residential service call in Omaha, we charge $150 an hour. If I increase that to $155 an hour, percentage wise, it's not that big of a leap.
Mhm.
But if my cost is fixed, that $5 an hour falls straight down to the bottom line,
Mhm.
which helps us buy more trucks, do more marketing, whatever the case is. However we want to pay more taxes, however we divide that up. But uh,
Well, let's see what
those
the math is on
those
that too.
things, yeah. I mean,
So it's 3.2% more gross. So a 3% increase in your cost. But if you're operating on 50% margins, that's 75. So the $5 divided by your 75, that's a 6% increase to
yeah,
your bottom line.
yeah. I think this basically doubles anything as percentage wise. I think is the general math numbers. I could be wrong there, but for every dollar that you increase the top line, say it's 1%, that's 2% to the bottom line. I could be,
If you're running 50% margins, or
yeah,
50% expense ratio rather.
yeah,
Yeah. So I think that goes back to what you track matters. And if you're in the real estate side, if you're tracking what is my physical occupancy today, you might have a 99% physical occupancy, but what does that do to the bottom line? We have no idea if you don't take into account what's my expense ratio, what's my economic occupancy, and economic meaning how many of my tenants are actually paying. Because if you have 80% economic occupancy and 99% physical occupancy, that means you have 19% of your tenants that are not paying their rent. So we found in some portfolios that the properties would be performing better if those units were vacant, because we're having to take on all of those eviction costs and the unit turns and
maintenance.
the yeah, past due utilities and all that stuff. So the way that you track numbers matters. Just saying I have a 99% occupancy, like that doesn't tell me anything.
And that's a great point. Like, I like the saying, but I dislike the saying of people lie, numbers don't. Numbers don't lie if you use the right numbers, if you use them in the right context. But people, I remember I was interviewing a property manager one time, and I asked all the right questions, if you will, but he answered them in a way that wasn't what I intended. So, like in my head, I'm asking all the right questions, but I didn't lock him into a time period. Like I think I asked him like, "What's your occupancy rate?" And he's like, "Oh, we're at 97%." Well, he's talking about that day when he sent that email, and I was talking about over the year.
Mhm.
What is your average rate? And
And what the way that I did it, so when I was in the army and I had a fleet of vehicles, we call them possible days and available days. And so if we have and available days means if you have downtime because a unit's piece of equipment's in the shop, you take the number of equipment that you have. So if you have um, called 100 pieces of equipment or 100 units, that's 365 potential days, right? So possible days is how many available are there. So for 100, that's 36,500 possible days. If I have one unit that's vacant for a full year, that's a 99% physical occupancy. 99%, is how I read it on a year. But if you have 10 units that are vacant for 6 months, that's a drastically higher, even though you're at 90%. So, anyways, just getting back to the way you track the numbers matters.
and that's what I'm getting at. Like people make the numbers work for them
Mm.
versus it goes back to what we're talking about being realistic with your goals and being truthful with your goals. You need to be truthful in how you track them and how they move the needle in your life. So if you're tracking how many times you go to the gym in the year, that might be a good KPI, but it also might not be a good KPI for you. It might be something that's totally skewed. Like if you want to lose weight, say go back, you want to lose 20 pounds. Well, going to the gym 250 times in a year might be good, but if you're not tracking how much you're eating, you might be substituting one for the other. So I think making sure you have the right numbers, the right KPIs, if you will. Like maybe revenue's not the ideal situation for your business based on your goals. So, but it's finding that number and being truthful with it. And I think that's one step people miss a lot when it comes to goals. And at the end of the day, it's a performance indicator. It's not do or die.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely. And I like that you tied it all back because starting with the end in mind is that be do have. And if the have is I want to net more money, I mean, you're right. That is too vague to be able to get any kind of concrete results from. But if it's I want to net a million, what does that translate into on the gross revenue side? Maybe it means that you need to have your plumbers find a way to get a 15% upcharge on all jobs. So can you introduce a product like maybe it's a drain cleaning? Hey, we're here already for an extra $15. We'll go clean out all your sinks. I don't know what that looks like for your industry, but if there's a way to get that 15% increase on the growth side, it will trickle down into the net. And the same is true with your fitness goals, with your health goals, spiritual, financial, is finding what are the leading indicators that I can measure, and that should be your goal. And that's what I'm saying. I don't think that tracking, I want to lose 20 pounds, is as effective as I'm going to go to the gym for 15 minutes minimum, you know, 15 minutes minimum more per week.
yeah, so I want to go back to your be do have. When you mentioned it earlier, and this came to mind, but I don't know if you said it or if it's just in my head, but it is a biblical context, and it comes from Genesis 1. So Genesis 1:26, let's make mankind in our image. Uh, the do is from Genesis 1:28. Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. And then the have is Genesis 1:29. So within what is that, 4 or 5 verses? I give you every seed bearing plant. So that's the half, what you have. And then it repeats itself in Genesis 2. Adam's formed, giving life, Genesis 7 or 2 7, then 2:15, and then 2:16 and 2:17. So, anyhow, it's a biblical context all the way from the start,
Mhm.
from the first chapter of the Bible. But
I listened to a Myron Golden video yesterday where he talked about this in depth, and it was just bone chilling, just how spot on it was. And he was talking about um, like the Creator created us in His image, and he's like, "Does that mean that I look like God? No, I look nothing like God. There's so many different looks that we have." He's like, "But I am creating the image of God, and what is the image of God?" He told us in Genesis 1 is He created the universe. And it's like, well, why do you have to do that? He's a perfect being. He has no need for any of this. It's like, because his nature is to create, and he created us in his image to be creators. And so looking at how we're setting our goals, I agree. It should be, what are we creating?
yeah, I mean, we could go off on a whole rabbit hole of this, but
Tangent.
it's, yeah, I go back to the beginning, first principles. I know Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, all these big guys, like they're very big first principles people. Peter Thiel, uh, Elon to some degree, I guess, but he always Elon goes back further than first principles. He goes back like, what does this tell us that we have to do it this way? And then why did they decide that this needed to be that way? And so he tries to unpeel the onion even further.
Hmm.
Very interesting standpoint, But yeah, that's what I do. That's what I try to do. So how for me, it's how do I live my life? Like I said, I kind of have two goals, and a revenue goal for Macintosh. I have a real estate goal of pay no taxes from Macintosh just based on my real estate stuff. Use the tax code to my advantage. And then personal is where I've been really struggling this year because every year I say I'm gonna lose 20 pounds. Every year I don't lose 20 pounds. Matter of fact, I've gained about 5 this year. So I went the wrong way. Uh, you know, a better spiritual life. What does that really look like? Uh, you know, better relationship with my wife. What does that really look like? So I have all these things that they're really, I think they're hard to quantify because I can say read the Bible every day or something like that, and I mean I do a pretty good job most days.
Well,
But
but I think that that's kind of getting to my point is, if your end result is more qualitative than quantitative, you want to have a better relationship with your wife. Well, what are the leading indicators that will get you that end result? And if the leading indicator, maybe it's part of that be do have, is in order to have a better relationship with your wife, she needs to feel more appreciated. Well, what would the type of person that appreciates their wife do? Well, maybe that's every day I'm going to set a timer on my phone that says I'm going to make sure that I send a text to my wife that says I appreciate you for doing this today or
I,
something.
I don't know how long you've been married, but women change daily, minute, monthly. It's I'm being funny, but like I don't know if there's a leading indicator for women that will.
And that's what I'm saying is, it's not the leading indicator for women, it's the leading indicator for your efforts. And let's say that you take one of the five love languages every single day, and you say, well, today I'm going to get her a gift. I'm going to get her flowers. Tomorrow it's going to be a um, words of affirmation, and then the day after it's going to be quality time. I'm just going to put my phone down. I'll go sit next to her. Just sit. Like, if you say that every single day I'm going to do one of those steps, do you think it would lead to the end result of having a closer relationship with your wife?
My 2 cents is no, because on a day that I give her something, she's gonna want me to sit down with her, and I'm gonna screw that up anyway. So, I mean, I say that half jokingly, but
But
that is my struggle.
do you think that if the end result is, or the end goal is to have a better relationship with your wife, that making an active effort for 5 minutes a day for 365 days a year would give you a better relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're going.
And the
I'm
same
kind of
on the
making
spiritual
jokes.
side is, if your goal is to be more in touch with the spirit, What is the one 5-minute activity that you can do every single day? Even if it's I'm going to change my routine from the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is just say, thank you, God, for letting my eyes open today. Would you be more in touch with the spirit than you were this year?
I got that. But how do you compound that? I guess is what I'm getting at. So I've talked about this multiple times. 8 or so years ago, I started reading the Bible. So I can't say I do it every day because I think I missed both days this weekend. But I have solid footing that 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 I stand on there. So now, before I was talking about meeting where you're at for as far as church. Someone that never went to church, just going to church is a win. Someone that's been going to church every day, maybe leading a Bible study, taking the next step. So, what is those next steps, and how do they continue? Because you have to continue compounding. So, it's not like business where I have $1 million revenue goal this year. I have a $3 million revenue goal next year. I have an $8 million revenue goal the year after. That I can continually raise the bar in a quantitative way. How do you do that in life? How do you do that, like working out? Okay, I want to live a healthier life. What does that look like this year? Okay, well, if I wanted to live a healthier life for my family in 2025 or 2026, chances are I want to do that in 2027. How do I continue to do that? How do I, without just stagnating and
Mhm.
losing? Because I think that's part of the other issue is once you get somewhere, sometimes it's easier to reach a destination than it is to stay in a destination.
Yeah, I
It's
think
kind of is
so.
what I'm getting at.
But do you think that's a complacency problem? Because I think what I'm saying is if you went from last year being unhappy in a certain area, whether it's fitness, spirituality, your relationship with your wife, if you cannot allocate a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day towards that one thing, then you're just saying, I mean, you're going to make excuses for why you're not getting the results that you want. And whether, I mean, if it is fitness, saying, I'm going to every hour for my workday do one push up. And on the hour, I do one push up. If you can't do that one minimal effort, then you don't want it that bad. And the two best pieces of advice that I think I've ever received for that is the show me your calendar and I'll show you your priorities. Because I guarantee you have your work meetings on there, you have your lunch meetings on there, you have, whatever, but you don't have anything for send my wife an I love you text or on Sunday, did I set time aside to just be still? If
Or
it's
meal prep or
or meal prep or
whatever it
yeah,
is.
whatever it may be. And then the other one is the success that you're seeking is in the thing that you're avoiding. And one thing, like, if they'll talk realistically, one thing that is on my list is to be better connected with my wife. Well, what's the one thing that I'm avoiding that's avoiding me, that's restricting my ability to be close to my wife? It's praying with her daily. There is an active resistance to praying with my wife. And I know that, but I'm not putting anything on my calendar that's fixing that. And I make excuses that, oh, well, she was tired, she went to bed at 8:30, and I was still, down with the kids and whatever the excuse may be, but I'm not doing the action daily of, well, find the time, put it on the calendar. So the things that I'm saying, I'm also not doing, but I know that I'm not doing them. And so if the result that I'm seeking is qualitative, then I find a quantity, which is 5 minutes a day to allocate towards my wife, 5 minutes a day to just be still and be in the word, 5 minutes a day to just do a couple push-ups. And if, like you said, 8 years ago, you maybe didn't pick up the Bible at all, and then you started doing Proverbs every single day. And if that slipped, then there's your answer. Is just reintroduce that of what's the discipline that you have to do to reintroduce that. And when that becomes consistent, maybe reevaluate after the first quarter of 26 and say, well, I found it easy to do that. For me, it was doing a devotional every day. I found it was easier for me to do a YouTube devotional, put my headphones on while I got dressed, got ready for the day, and I did that. I looked at my YouTube analytics. All right, my goal was to do that every day last year. I did it 212 times. The year before, 0 times. So I got closer with God just by making that a daily habit. And then when that daily habit, if I make it consistent, maybe after 6 months, it's do the devotional and be still every day. And with my wife, it's pray every day. When that becomes consistent, pray every day and send a text of gratitude every day. So I think that's part of that habit stacking of you need to create the habits in order to compound on top of it.
I agree 100%. I guess my pushback, and it's not intentional pushback, it's I feel like people will run out of I don't know what to do next. I think that's part of it.
I
So
think that's part of what we're talking about is it's easier to succeed at not trying than it is to try and fail.
yeah, but I would say we used health because I think that's a good one. I set the goal to work out 250 times in 2026. Maybe I get whatever you said, 220, 212, whatever you said. Fairly close. I didn't hit it. But do I keep the same goal for the next year or do I add on to that? Say I just add on to it. Okay, I didn't hit it this year, but I got pretty damn close. I'm gonna hit it next year. So 2027, you hit that goal. Then what? Do you just keep doing the same thing, or do you like do you add to it?
Yeah,
And so that's kind of where like
I get what you're saying, and I think that that goes back to what you're measuring. As you said that my goal is to go to the gym 250 days a year, but what if you change that to I'm going to go to the gym 4 days a week minimum, and I'm not going to miss 4 days a week. And if I miss a day, then I go an extra day the next week, and then I go back to four. Like that will get you to reach your goal. My math is off there again, but
yeah,
you get my point. Is that I
five
think
times a week.
5 times a week, yeah. If you say that I'm going to work out 5 times a week, then putting that in your calendar. And for me, one of the ones last year is that I really want to work on the stress and being more at peace during the day. So I prayed about it, and I had a sermon that came up that talked about I can't remember what the verse was, but it basically was I think it's um, 1 Corinthians 4:6 or something like that. It was just about God shining His light on others. And so I set an alarm on my phone every single day for 4:06 that reminds me to take 30 seconds to just pray for someone. It could be someone that I'm angry at, it could be someone who pissed me off that day. But if I just take that time, it just adds a little bit of gratitude into my day. And by doing that every single day, it became a habit. Now it pops up. I just snooze the alarm. I could close my eyes for 30 seconds, just say a quick prayer, and then go on with my day. And if all that does is take my cortisol from here down to here, then I'm making a little bit of progress every day. And I can eventually habit stack on top of that and say, well, I've been able to do it for 30 seconds. What if I did it for 5 minutes every day? I could probably find the time for that. And anyone who says that I can't find 5 minutes a day for the goal that I want doesn't really want that goal. They just say they want it because they think that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, and I agree. I just like I said, for some of the things, I find it hard to come up with things, and maybe I'm just projecting my own issues onto this podcast. But I to the time thing, if it's important, you'll find time. Like I'll go back to Elon Musk on this one. This dude runs like $5 billion, multi-billion-dollar companies. If he's find time to run all these companies and do it at a high level, now granted, he probably sleeps 2 hours a day, and his stress is probably off the charts, and
Mm.
divorced 17 times or whatever as kids. That maybe that's not the lifestyle you want to live. But my point is, if he can find time to do all this stuff, you can find time to do what's important to you. So
So I think I know we're going to wrap this up, but if you look at the long term why of that qualitative and saying that you can't measure what does a better relationship with my wife look like. It's a qualitative thing. Look at it when I'm 80 years old. Why do I want this year to be the year that I have a better relationship with my wife? And if this is the baseline that you're working at, and this year you make it to here, and then next year you put another valiant effort in and you get it up to here, then every year should be getting a little bit better. You say, well, I want to be that 80-year-old guy that when my time comes, my wife says, he bought me flowers every Sunday for 40 years. Like that's how she felt appreciated. Now I know we talked about the love dares, and my wife's the same way. I never know which or not love dare, the love languages. I don't know which one she is that day. But if I'm making somewhat of an effort to be better every single week for the next 50 years, like, will I have a better relationship with my wife when my time comes? Absolutely. So I think that it's a cop out to say, well, 5 minutes a day is going to make a difference, because 5 minutes a day is more effort than I've been putting in for the last however many years.
Yeah, I I agree with, and this is, I'll get way off on it, and I'm gonna just end it abruptly. But so one of my issues with that is, why your wife? Why my wife? Why my kids? Why do we single people out that I want to have a better relationship with them, and why not be more like Christ and have a better relationship with everybody? I think, I don't know. That's one of my struggles, and like I said, I've been going off on this
Well,
for a
I
while.
think that the Bible calls us to, is the Bible doesn't, I mean, it says love your neighbor, but it doesn't say love your neighbor before your wife. And if you don't know how to love your wife, how can you possibly know how to love your neighbor? And if you don't know how to love Christ, how can you possibly know how to love your wife? So I tell my kids all the time, like, there is a pecking order. And when comes home from work, she gets the first hug. When I come home from work, she gets the first hug. Kids can run up and like, nope, stiff arm. Wife, my wife comes first. But even before my wife, it's Jesus.
Well,
So
and that's my point, I guess, is go back to first principles. If you're doing the first thing first, all the other things will take care of themselves. If a 30-second text to your wife, if a 30-second prayer is important, what's the upstream thing that you can be doing that all those downstream items take care of themselves?
so maybe the answer is in the question there, is if spending a minute with my kids, just asking them how their day was and genuinely being interested, and 2 minutes with my wife asking how her day and what I can do to be better to support her, maybe that means 3 minutes with God every day. I don't know what that looks like, but if this year I said I'm going to spend 3 minutes with God, 2 minutes with my wife, and a minute with each of my kids every day, and I'm going to have a better relationship with all of them, and then 30 seconds of just praying for strangers to help me love, my neighbor better, then maybe next year it's 4, 3, 2, 1, and every year I'm getting better at that, to the point where I'm a Buddhist monk in the, woods, just praying for everyone all the time.
Yeah, and I don't know if it necessarily has to be prayer, is what I'm getting at. But I think if you're discipling under Jesus, under God, everything from being a leader, a better leader in business, a better real estate investor, a better husband, a better neighbor, a better podcast host, all those things I think will just take care of themselves. Um, so I mean, that's kind of, you were talking about your struggles. That's kind of my struggle. How do I do that? How do I What's the one KPI to rule them all? I guess
Hmm.
is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think intentionality and being intentional with where your time is going. And if you say, I want this end result, how can you allocate 1 minute towards each of those areas every day? And I can't remember who, oh, it was Ryan Serhant. He talked about the $1,000 a day rule. Have you heard of that one? So he said, actually in his interview with Cody Sanchez, he brought it up, that he started treating you. I mean, every human has an average of 1,000 minutes per day. And so he started thinking about minutes as dollars. And so if I have $1,000 a day and someone pisses me off on a phone call or a Zoom call or whatever, would I throw $995 away for $5? Never. So I'm not going to let that bother me. The same is true with where your time goes. Is if I knew that for every 5 minutes that I pour into my wife, 5 minutes I pour into my business, 5 minutes into my kids, 5 minutes into my faith, that's $20. Is that going to help me with the rest of the $980? Absolutely. So if you can't allocate 5 minutes a day towards the things that you say you want, then you don't really want them. And I think that starting small, not giving yourself, I'm going to give my wife an hour every single day, that you're just setting yourself up for failure. But if you can give her 5 minutes today and then get good at that for 6 months, and then maybe it turns into a half an hour a day, then that will trickle down into everything else that you're doing, because you say you want this thing and then you hold yourself accountable to the bare minimum it takes to get that thing. So I think it's doing the things that you say you're going to do and giving yourself realistic checkpoints on that be do have of what are the B steps that I can do that will get me to this end result, and then stick to it. Don't lie to yourself. And that's the biggest thing with why people, when they say I'm going to go to the gym every day and then they don't do it, or I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow morning and then you don't do it, your first thought in the morning is I lie to myself.
Well, I think we should just leave it on lying to ourselves. So, yeah, I appreciate it. I think if you take one thing away from this is come up with realistic, truthful things that'll move the needle in your life. Don't stop just because you screwed up one time. Keep moving. Don't break the X a second time. No 2 days in a row, or 2 meals in a row, or two whatever in a row.
Stack
and and
incrementally.
and just keep going. Put your head down and keep going. At the end of the year, you'll be a better person. You'll be a better husband, better neighbor, better business owner, whatever. So,
Yeah.
Tanner, we'll do this again in 365 days and see where we're at.
All right.